I protected a blue-skinned girl during the war years ago. Now she's back. And she said Neil, whom of the war had come suddenly, like a storm no one could predict. Planets that had been peaceful for centuries were now burning in the void, and alliances that seemed unshakable were crumbling under the weight of fear and ambition. In the middle of it all, humanity was struggling. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced. Other species looked at humans and dismissed them as fragile, unworthy, or expendable. But humans had something that the galaxy often underestimated: courage, determination, and the kind of quick thinking that could survive impossible situations. Eli had been only 22 when the war reached Zyphera. He had joined the Human Expeditionary Corps because he wanted to see the galaxy, to do something meaningful with his life, and because he believed that humans could make a difference even when the odds were against them. He had trained for months, learning tactics, survival skills, and the ways of alien cultures, but nothing could have prepared him for the chaos he found when he arrived. Zyphera had once been a beautiful planet with green forests, clear rivers, and cities that shimmered in the sun. Now it was a battlefield. Buildings were reduced to rubble, streets were littered with debris, and smoke hung in the sky like a heavy blanket. The mission had seemed simple at first: patrol the northern sector, provide reconnaissance, and report any enemy movements. But simplicity did not exist in war. Eli and his unit moved cautiously, scanning for patrols and ambushes. The air was thick with tension, every sound amplified in his mind. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet, Eli heard a faint noise coming from the ruins of what had once been a marketplace. A soft whimper almost drowned out by the wind. He paused, his instincts screaming that it could be a trap. But something in the sound, delicate, frightened, human-like in its desperation, made him move closer. Among the collapsed buildings he saw her. A little girl no older than 10, with blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dying light. Her eyes were wide and fearful, darting from shadow to shadow, and her small body trembled. She was dirty, bruised, and clearly had been alone for days. Eli's heart ached. "Hey," he said softly, keeping his voice low so as not to startle her. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl froze. Her eyes were filled with terror, but there was also a spark of something else: bravery, perhaps, or defiance. She didn't run, which was a small victory in Eli's mind. He crouched down a few feet away, trying to appear non-threatening. "My name is Eli," he said. "What's your name?" She didn't answer. Instead, she took a small step backward, eyes never leaving his. Eli noticed the way she clutched a torn piece of fabric to her chest, as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded in this chaotic world. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said again. "You're safe with me, I promise." It took several tense moments, but finally she whispered something in a language Eli didn't understand. It was soft, almost musical, and he could sense the fear behind it. He didn't respond, instead giving a reassuring nod and waiting patiently. After what felt like an eternity, she hesitated, then slowly stepped closer. Eli extended his hand, palm open. She studied it, then with a hesitant movement took it. The touch was light, tentative, but it was a beginning. "I'll get you out of here," Eli said. "Can you walk?" She nodded barely. Eli helped her up, supporting her as they moved through the ruins. Every step was cautious. They avoided the main streets, sticking to shadows and broken alleyways. Eli's mind was racing. He had no idea who she was, what her people wanted, or whether the enemy was nearby. But he knew one thing: he couldn't leave her here. Not alone, not ever. As they moved, Eli learned more about her without even speaking. The way she held herself, the cautious way she looked around, the quiet resilience in her movements. It told him that she had survived this long not by luck, but by intelligence and courage. She was small, yes, but she had strength that matched her fear. By nightfall, they reached the edge of the city ruins. Eli set up a small camp in a hidden nook, using debris to shield them from the wind and any prying eyes. He shared some of his rations with her. She accepted them reluctantly, taking small bites, eyes still wary. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said gently. "I'll protect you. No one will hurt you as long as I'm here." Her eyes softened slightly, and she leaned against him, exhausted. Eli realized that she hadn't slept properly in days, maybe weeks. He offered his jacket to her, and she curled up beside him, the way a child might with a parent or older sibling. Eli stayed awake, keeping watch, listening to the distant sounds of conflict, making sure nothing came near. Days passed. Eli found ways to keep her safe while scouting for supplies. He learned that she was from a small settlement that had been destroyed during the early days of the war. She had been hiding, moving from one ruined building to another, scavenging what she could to survive. Her family was gone. Her people had either fled or been captured. The thought made Eli's chest tighten with anger and sorrow, but he knew that anger would not help now. What mattered was keeping her alive. They traveled together through the war-torn landscape, Eli teaching her small skills, how to hide, how to move silently, how to find clean water and edible plants. She picked up quickly, her blue eyes reflecting curiosity and intelligence. She began to smile sometimes, a rare and precious expression that made Eli's heart lift. He gave her a name, Lyra. It felt right, like a light in the darkness. One evening, as they rested in the ruins of an old observatory, Lyra spoke her first words in a language Eli could understand. "Eli, you save me." Her voice was soft, almost shy, but full of sincerity. Eli smiled, crouching beside her. "Yes, Lyra," he said. "I'll always protect you. That's my promise." The bond between them grew stronger each day. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was trust, understanding, and a connection that went beyond words. Eli knew that in the galaxy, humans were often seen as weak, as fragile, as insignificant. But here, in the middle of war, he realized something. Human courage, human compassion, and human ingenuity could mean the difference between life and death. Lyra depended on him, and he depended on her in ways he couldn't fully explain. As the weeks went by, Eli faced countless challenges. Enemy patrols roamed the ruins. Collapsing buildings threatened to crush them. Starving creatures scavenged nearby. Yet through every obstacle, he and Lyra relied on each other. Her keen senses helped them avoid danger, and his experience and quick thinking kept them alive. Together, they were a team, human and alien, united by necessity, trust, and something deeper. Finally, after what felt like months, Eli knew it was time to leave Zyphera. The war was shifting, and he had orders to return to human-controlled territory. Leaving Lyra behind was impossible. He made the difficult decision to place her in the care of her people, who had survived in a hidden enclave. It was risky. She might never forgive him if something went wrong, but he knew it was the best chance she had for a safe life. The day of their parting was quiet. Lyra clung to him, tears in her glowing blue eyes. Will you come back?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I will," he promised. "I don't know when, but I will. You stay safe, Lyra. You remember who you are and what you can do." She nodded, clutching the piece of fabric she always carried, and Eli watched as she disappeared into the shadows of her hidden village. He felt a strange emptiness, a weight on his heart that stayed with him long after he left Zyphera. Years would pass. Eli returned to human space, built a life, and often thought of Lyra. He wondered how she was, whether she had grown strong, whether she remembered him as he remembered her. Humans were rarely remembered by other species, often overlooked in the vast galaxy. But Eli hoped that the bond they shared would transcend time and distance. He didn't know that one day, Lyra would return grown, confident, and powerful. That one small child he had protected would become a leader, someone who could shape the fate of worlds. And when she did return, she would remember everything. She would remember the human who risked everything to save her. And in that moment, Eli would realize that the courage and heart of a human could leave a mark on the galaxy in ways no weapon, no fleet, and no battle ever could. Years had passed since Eli had last seen Lyra. The galaxy had shifted in that time, but humans remained underestimated. Eli had returned to Earth, thinking the worst of the war behind him. He had found a quiet life among the humans who had survived the chaos, working to teach young cadets the skills he had learned during the conflict. He had lived with a sense of routine and calm, yet there was always a small part of him that remembered Zyphera, that remembered the little blue-skinned girl with wide eyes who had trusted him when everyone else had turned away. It was a quiet evening when the impossible happened. Eli was sitting on the balcony of his small home, sipping water and watching the city lights shimmer under the dark sky. He was tired from a long day of teaching and planning for the cadets' next training exercises. The hum of the city was comforting, a simple human sound that reminded him he was alive, safe, and far from the battlefields of Zyphera. Then he saw it, a shimmer, faint at first, appearing in the corner of the yard. It was not a reflection from the city lights, nor a trick of the eyes. It was something alive, something moving. Eli rose instinctively, scanning the area with trained precision, but there was no sound of vehicles, no footsteps. The shimmer grew brighter, forming a shape in the air. And then he saw her, Lyra. She stepped out of the shimmering light, no longer the small, frightened child he had protected, but a young woman whose presence commanded attention. Her blue skin glowed faintly in the evening, her eyes shining with intelligence, confidence, and authority. She moved with a grace that Eli had never expected from the girl who had clung to him years ago. Every detail of her presence spoke of growth, power, and purpose. Eli's heart raced. He could hardly believe his eyes. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice trembling. She looked at him, her gaze steady, almost piercing. "Eli," she said, her voice calm but firm. Then, without a word of explanation, she raised her hand slightly and said, "Kneel, human." The words hit Eli like a physical force. For a moment he froze. Kneel. He had faced enemy patrols, collapsing buildings, and starvation in the ruins of Zyphera, yet this simple command made his mind falter. There was an authority in her voice that he could not ignore. She was not threatening him with violence. That was not her way. But there was a weight in her presence that made the universe around them feel smaller, quieter, focused entirely on him. Eli's instincts, honed through years of human training and survival, told him that this was a test. He studied her face carefully, looking for signs of trickery, of deception, or malice. There was none. Only confidence, clarity, and a hint of a smile that made him feel both at ease and awed. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself to one knee. It was not submission in fear. It was acknowledgement, a human recognition of the moment, of the importance of the person before him, of the bond they shared. Lyra's smile widened slightly, not cruelly, but with satisfaction. "You remember your place, Eli," she said softly. "Not because you fear me, but because you respect what I have become, and I respect what you have always been." Eli's mind raced. The little girl who had hidden in rubble, trembling from fear, was now a figure of influence and power. Yet she had come back to him, to the human who had protected her, to acknowledge him, to involve him in a way he could never have imagined. It was overwhelming, but the pride he felt was stronger than any confusion. They spent hours that evening talking, though much of it was silent understanding. Lyra explained that during the years they had been apart, she had risen among her people to a position of leadership. Wars had shaped her world, but so had the memory of Eli's courage. She had never forgotten the human who had risked everything to protect a frightened child. And though humans were often dismissed in the galaxy, she had always believed that the qualities Eli embodied, bravery, ingenuity, and compassion, were rare and worth honoring. Eli listened intently, absorbing every word. He realized that human reputation in the galaxy was limited, that humans were rarely recognized for their intelligence or their capacity for empathy, but Lyra had never doubted it. She had carried his belief in human potential into her adult life. Over the next few days, Lyra stayed at Eli's home. She observed Earth carefully, curious about the humans who had survived against overwhelming odds. Eli introduced her to the cadets he taught, though carefully, not revealing too much at first. The cadets were in awe not of Lyra's beauty or her strange blue skin, but of the aura of leadership she carried. And though they had trained to face enemies, they were surprised to see that even someone so alien could inspire respect without raising a weapon. Lyra and Eli began to explore Earth together. She was fascinated by human technology, culture, and the way people adapted to survive in small ways that were often overlooked. She observed the city with interest, noting the ways humans created safety, beauty, and community in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Eli showed her the simple joys of life, a quiet park, the sound of children playing, the taste of freshly baked bread. She absorbed it all with curiosity, yet there was an undercurrent of purpose in everything she did. One afternoon, as they walked along a quiet riverbank, Lyra stopped and turned to Eli. "You saved me," she said quietly. "You never had to, I could have survived, but you chose me, and because of that I have become someone I never could have been otherwise." Eli nodded, his chest tight with emotion. "I did what any human would do," he said humbly. "I couldn't leave you behind. I promised I would protect you, and I kept that promise." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "And that is why I am here now," she said. "I need you, Eli. Not because I cannot do this myself, but because humanity has something special, something the galaxy often underestimates. I have seen it in you, and I know it exists in others. You remind me that courage, empathy, and ingenuity are more powerful than fleets, weapons, or treaties, and I want you by my side as I face what comes next." Eli's mind raced. The thought of joining her in the wider galaxy, to face new challenges not with weapons but with wisdom and courage, was both terrifying and exhilarating. He had spent years believing that his contributions were small, that humans were too weak to matter in the grand scale of the galaxy. And yet, here was Lyra, a leader among her people, acknowledging him as a partner, an equal, someone who could make a difference. The days turned into weeks. Lyra's presence drew attention from people who knew her name, from those who had seen her rise through the ranks. Eli saw firsthand the respect she commanded, the quiet influence that allowed her to guide her people without fear or aggression. And in private moments, she shared stories of her childhood, the hardships she had endured, and how Eli's protection had shaped her view of humanity. Together, they began to plan. Lyra shared her vision for unity among her people, and how the galaxy could be influenced through cooperation, understanding, and ingenuity rather than conflict. Eli contributed ideas from his human perspective, showing how small, creative solutions could solve problems that others thought required force or dominance. The partnership was natural, complementary, and stronger than either could have imagined alone. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the horizon, Lyra turned to him again. "Eli," she said softly, "you know why I asked you to kneel. It was not for submission. It was to remind both of us of what we are capable of, what we respect in each other. Humans are often underestimated, but you taught me otherwise. That lesson has stayed with me, guiding me through every challenge. And now I want you to stand with me, not behind me, not below me, but beside me." Eli looked into her eyes, feeling a warmth and pride that went beyond words. He had never imagined that a human could have such influence, that their courage and determination could leave a mark on the galaxy, remembered and honored by someone like Lyra. And in that moment, he realized that humans, though small and often overlooked, carried a strength that no alien fleet, no council, no weapon could ever truly measure. Lyra smiled, sensing his understanding. Together, they began to discuss their next steps. not as child and protector, but as partners, each bringing their unique strengths to face challenges that neither could manage alone. The bond they had forged years ago in the ruins of Zyphera had not faded. It had grown, matured, and strengthened, proving that even in a galaxy full of fear, chaos, and conflict, humans could shine with courage, wisdom, and an indomitable spirit. Eli realized that his life had changed forever. The quiet days of teaching, the simple routines of human life, were no longer enough. He had been called to something greater, something that would test his mind, his patience, and his courage. And with Lyra by his side, he knew that humans were capable of far more than the galaxy had ever imagined. And in that quiet moment, under the fading light of Earth's evening sky, Eli understood something profound. He had once protected a frightened blue-skinned girl, believing he was only saving her life. Now she had returned, grown and strong, commanding respect and influence, and in her eyes he saw the reflection of humanity's potential, bold, clever, and unstoppable when guided by courage and heart. It was the beginning of a new chapter. And for Eli, for Lyra, and for humanity, the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Eli had spent weeks with Lyra now, and each day brought new revelations. Life on Earth seemed so simple compared to the challenges Lyra had faced on her planet. Yet despite the differences, Eli could see the similarities in the way humans and her people approached problems. Both relied on creativity, determination, and collaboration. Lyra often reminded him of their first days together on Zyphera, how he had used his instincts to protect her when no one else could. And in turn, she shared the lessons she had learned: leadership, diplomacy, and the ways to guide people without fear. The city they walked through on Earth was busy, full of human life that was noisy, chaotic, and unpredictable. Lyra observed everything with fascination, her head tilted slightly as she studied the buildings, the transportation systems, and the people moving with purpose. She often asked questions, sometimes very simple, sometimes more profound, about the nature of human society. Eli answered patiently, knowing that her curiosity was genuine. One afternoon, as they sat on the rooftop of Eli's home, overlooking the city, Lyra spoke about her purpose in returning. "Eli, I did not come back for nostalgia," she said. "I came because there are challenges ahead that require both our strengths. I lead my people, yes, but influence alone is not enough. Understanding other perspectives is what will allow us to create lasting solutions." Eli nodded. "I understand," he said. "Humans often see the galaxy differently. We adapt quickly, we think in ways others might not expect. That's why I think we can help each other. You know leadership, and I know how to see problems from the human angle." Lyra smiled faintly. "Exactly. And that is why I want you by my side. Not as someone beneath me, but as someone who contributes equally. Your perspective, human ingenuity, is more valuable than many leaders realize. You proved that once, long ago, and I believe it will continue to be valuable." Eli felt a surge of pride. Humans had always been underestimated, often dismissed as weak, fragile, or irrelevant. Yet here he was, acknowledged by someone whose power and influence were far beyond his own, recognized for qualities that the galaxy had rarely honored in his species. The feeling was humbling and inspiring all at once. Over the next few days, Lyra introduced Eli to her people remotely, through secure communication links. He observed how they debated policies, discussed trade, and solved problems. Some of the older council members were skeptical at first. A human? Could someone so small, so unarmed, possibly understand the complexities of their society? But Eli's calm, thoughtful insights soon began to gain attention. Lyra guided him gently. "Do not try to prove yourself with force or authority," she advised. "Use observation, reason, and empathy. Show them that humans can contribute solutions that others might miss. That is your strength." Eli took her advice to heart. During discussions, He asked questions that forced the council to consider perspectives they had overlooked. He suggested ways to improve trade routes, enhance communication with neighboring systems, and even simple ways to manage resources more efficiently. Slowly, skepticism gave way to respect. The council members began to realize that humans, though underestimated, had a way of seeing solutions in unexpected ways. One evening, after a particularly long day of remote meetings, Eli and Lyra sat in silence, watching the stars. "You know," Eli said quietly, "I never imagined that the human way of thinking could be this valued. I always thought we were too small, too weak. But with you, it feels like we have a chance to really make a difference." Lyra reached out and placed her hand lightly on his arm. "Eli, that is exactly why I returned. I needed to remind the galaxy that humans are more than they appear. And I needed to remind you that your courage, your empathy, your ingenuity, these are what make humans remarkable. You are proof that even when the odds seem impossible, humans find a way." The following days were filled with preparation for a journey. Lyra needed Eli's perspective as they navigated negotiations with neighboring systems. A nearby alliance had grown wary of her leadership, questioning whether her vision could unite multiple worlds. Some feared that alien systems could not trust a human, while others simply did not understand the human approach. Eli was nervous, but Lyra's confidence in him made him steady. As they traveled through a series of transport gates, Eli observed how alien societies operated. Different customs, languages, and ways of thinking surrounded him. He realized that humans often solved problems in ways others dismissed. Small innovations, small compromises, small acts of creativity that could ripple into big results. Lyra relied on him to provide insight into how humans might approach situations differently, and he found himself contributing more than he ever imagined he could. At one station, they encountered a logistical challenge. Resources intended for one system had been misrouted, and the officials responsible were panicked, unsure how to rectify the problem. Eli stepped forward, calmly analyzing the data and proposing a reallocation plan that made sense to both the local officials and Lyra's team. Within hours, the crisis was resolved. The officials looked at him with astonishment. Lyra leaned close and whispered, "See, human thinking works. Sometimes it is not the strongest who succeed, but those who can adapt and create solutions others cannot see." Eli smiled. "I guess humans are underestimated for a reason," he said softly, but with pride. By the time they arrived on Lyra's homeworld, Eli felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The planet was breathtaking, with gleaming towers, lush gardens, and skies that shimmered with colors he had never seen on Earth. But it was not just beauty that struck him. It was the sense of responsibility, of duty, that hung in the air. Lyra moved with purpose, her people greeting her with respect, and Eli began to understand the weight she carried as a leader. They entered a council chamber filled with delegates from various regions of the planet. Eli's presence drew curious glances. Some whispered, questioning why a human would be there, what he could contribute. Lyra stood confidently, introducing him simply as Eli, a human whose perspective will guide us through challenges we face together. Eli felt the tension, but he remained calm. He listened carefully as discussions began, noting points that others overlooked. When an opportunity arose, he suggested a compromise that balanced competing interests, something neither side had considered. Murmurs of approval spread through the room. Skepticism began to fade. After the meeting, Lyra smiled at him. "You are doing more than I imagined," she said. "Humans are often dismissed, yet here you are, shaping decisions with clarity and insight." Eli shook his head. "I am only applying what humans know: observation, empathy, problem-solving. It is not special, but it seems to be rare in the galaxy." Lyra's gaze softened. "It is special because you embrace it without fear, without pride, without arrogance. That is what makes humans remarkable." Over the following weeks, Eli and Lyra faced several challenges that tested their ability to work together. Negotiations with neighboring systems required diplomacy and patience. Resource allocation issues demanded creativity and compromise. Public forums with her people required patience, humility, and the ability to listen deeply. Each time, Eli found ways to contribute uniquely, and Lyra's guidance helped him navigate the complexities of her society. At night, after long days of meetings and discussions, they would sit quietly and reflect. Eli learned more about Lyra's life, the responsibilities she carried, and the sacrifices she had made. He realized that her leadership was not born from desire for power, but from a commitment to her people, the same sense of duty he had learned as a human soldier. And he saw how his own experiences protecting her, surviving the war, making decisions under pressure, had prepared him for this moment. One night, as they watched the twin moons rise above Lyra's city, she turned to him. "Eli, do you see now why I asked you to kneel when I returned? It was not about submission. It was about respect, recognition, and understanding. The galaxy often underestimates humans, but you have shown me that courage, ingenuity, and empathy are forces that cannot be ignored. And together, we can show the galaxy that humans are more than they appear." Eli nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. He realized that his journey had come full circle. He had once protected a frightened child in the ruins of Scifi, believing that was all he could do. Now he stood beside that child, grown into a powerful leader, helping guide not only her decisions but also the understanding of humanity across the galaxy. And in that moment, Eli understood something profound. Humans, though small and often dismissed, had the ability to leave a mark on the galaxy through courage, compassion, and ingenuity. With Lyra by his side, he felt the power of partnership, a human and an alien leader working together, showing that respect, trust, and understanding could accomplish more than weapons or armies ever could. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with challenges, learning, and growth. Eli and Lyra were no longer child and protector, but partners, equals, and friends united by history, trust, and shared purpose. Together, they would navigate the complexities of galactic society, demonstrating the extraordinary potential of humans to those who had once doubted them. And as Eli looked at Lyra, he knew that the bond they had forged years ago in the ruins of Scifi would carry them through everything that lay ahead. They had survived the past, and now, together, they were shaping the future. Eli had never imagined that his life would bring him to a place like this. The city where Lyra ruled was breathtaking, with towers of blue and silver that reflected sunlight like mirrors, gardens that spread across rooftops, and rivers flowing with a purity that seemed impossible on a war-torn galaxy. And yet, beauty alone did not define Lyra's world. Beneath the gleaming surface were complexities, responsibilities, and expectations that weighed heavily on her. As he walked beside her through the council halls, Eli felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. This was her realm, her people, and the stakes were higher than anything he had faced before. The council chamber was massive, with high ceilings that arched like the sky itself. Delegates from every region of Lyra's homeworld gathered here, sitting in sleek, polished seats that curved in concentric circles. Eli could feel the weight of their attention as he entered. Some eyes were curious, some skeptical, and some outright doubtful. A human, after all, was a rarity here. Most of these council members had only heard stories of humans, stories that ranged from dismissive to mocking. Few believed that a human could contribute meaningfully to their governance. Lyra guided him to a seat beside her, her presence calm, commanding, and reassuring. She introduced him simply. "This is Eli, a human who brings insight, understanding, and perspective to our council. I trust his judgment, and so should you." Her words were confident, but the room did not respond immediately. There was silence, a quiet hum of whispers and the subtle shifting of bodies. Eli could feel the skepticism pressing against him, but he did not flinch. He had survived war, guided a frightened child through ruins, and faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. This was different, yes, but he knew he could hold his ground. The council's first session with Eli was focused on a trade negotiation. A neighboring system had refused to supply essential resources unless the council agreed to certain terms that could disrupt Lyra's plans for unity and peace. The delegates were divided, and the discussion quickly became heated. Voices rose, arguments overlapped, and frustration mounted. Eli listened carefully, taking notes in his mind, observing patterns in the logic and emotion of each speaker. When the discussion reached a point of stalemate, Eli spoke quietly but with clarity. "If I may," he said, and all eyes turned to him. "Perhaps we can approach this from a different perspective. Instead of viewing the resource as a single asset, consider it in stages. Divide the shipments into portions that satisfy the neighboring system while ensuring that our own people are not disadvantaged. This way, both sides gain without conflict, and we establish a precedent for cooperation rather than coercion." The room was silent for a moment. Then slowly one of the skeptical delegates nodded. "It is unconventional," she said, "but it makes sense. Perhaps we should explore this approach." Others began to murmur in agreement, and soon the entire council was discussing the feasibility of Eli's proposal. Lyra's eyes sparkled with quiet satisfaction. After the session, she leaned toward him. "See, Eli, human thinking is often overlooked, but it is adaptable. You see patterns, possibilities, and compromises that others miss because they are focused on tradition or authority. That is why I wanted you here." Eli smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "I'm glad it helps," he said. "I never thought humans would have a chance to influence decisions like this, but it seems that even small perspectives can make a difference." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. And it is not just about influence. It is about showing that humans are capable of understanding, adapting, and contributing in ways others might underestimate. That is why I asked you to kneel when I returned, not for submission, but for acknowledgement. Today, your actions prove the value of that acknowledgement." Days turned into weeks, and Eli began to understand the full scope of Lyra's responsibilities. She carried the weight of her people's trust, balanced competing interests, and worked tirelessly to ensure the stability of her world. Yet, she was not alone. With Eli by her side, she had someone who could offer solutions from a perspective rarely considered, someone whose courage and empathy complemented her authority. The council soon presented Eli with a new challenge, a regional dispute over resource allocation that had persisted for decades. Several sectors claimed rights to the same water reserves, leading to tension, mistrust, and stalled development. Previous leaders had failed to resolve the issue, and many council members believed it would require coercion or force to achieve a solution. Eli approached the problem differently. He listened to the concerns of each sector individually, taking notes on their priorities, fears, and suggestions. Then he observed the overlap, common interests that had been overlooked. With Lyra's guidance, he proposed a plan that redistributed resources based on need, efficiency, and mutual benefit. It included shared oversight committees and transparent reporting, ensuring that no sector felt ignored or overpowered. The council chamber was skeptical at first, but Eli's plan gradually won support. Members began to see that his approach was practical, fair, and innovative. By the end of the week, an agreement had been reached, one that satisfied all parties and established a new standard for future disputes. Lyra's confidence in him deepened, and Eli realized that humans could have far-reaching influence not through power, but through insight and creativity. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Eli and Lyra walked through the gardens of her palace. The air was fragrant with alien flowers, and the twin moons of her planet reflected in the crystal-clear ponds. Lyra paused, looking thoughtful. Eli, do you see now why your presence is vital? It is not just for practical solutions. It is for perspective, for understanding. Humans bring a clarity that is often missing when others are consumed by tradition or pride. Eli nodded. I understand, Lyra. I never thought my life would lead me here, teaching humans, protecting a child, and now influencing a council halfway across the galaxy. But I see now that humans are not as small as others believe. We have value in ways that cannot be measured by strength or technology alone. Lyra smiled. And that is why I returned. I needed to remind both myself and the galaxy that humans are extraordinary. Not because we are stronger or faster, but because we adapt, think, and act with courage and empathy. That is why you are here, and that is why we succeed together. The following days brought further challenges. A communication breakdown threatened to halt trade with a distant system, and mistrust between regional leaders risked escalating into long-term tension. Eli applied human problem-solving techniques, breaking down complex issues into manageable components, suggesting compromises, and facilitating dialogue that allowed both sides to feel heard and valued. Each success reinforced the council's growing respect for him. Lyra watched him closely during these sessions. She had seen many leaders and advisors in her life, but Eli's approach was different. He did not rely on authority or intimidation. He relied on observation, empathy, and intelligence, qualities that were rare, yet infinitely powerful. Through him, she could demonstrate the value of partnership, showing her people and the galaxy that humans could contribute in ways that transcended size, appearance, or preconceived notions. One night, after another long day of negotiations, Eli and Lyra sat in her private chamber, looking out at the city lights. Eli felt a deep sense of purpose he had never known. He had once believed that humans were insignificant in the grand scale of the galaxy, that they were too small to leave a lasting mark. But here he was, influencing decisions, guiding solutions, and demonstrating the human capacity for wisdom and innovation. Lyra turned to him, her eyes shining with sincerity. Eli, you have proven what I always knew. Humans are remarkable not because of strength but because of heart, mind, and courage. Together, we have shown that even the smallest voice can create meaningful change. And together, we will continue to do so. Eli felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of fulfillment and pride. He had protected Lyra when she was a frightened child, and now he stood beside her as an equal, shaping the future of her world and demonstrating the extraordinary value of humanity. The bond they shared had not faded. It had grown, matured, and strengthened through trust, respect, and shared purpose. The council soon recognized Eli as more than a guest or advisor. He became a symbol of human potential, a reminder that courage, empathy, and ingenuity could influence decisions, solve problems, and inspire others. Delegates who had once doubted him now sought his input, curious to see how a human might approach issues they had struggled with for years. Through all of this, Eli and Lyra continued to learn from each other. She taught him the nuances of leadership, diplomacy, and vision. He taught her the value of adaptability, observation, and creative problem-solving. Together, they became a formidable team, blending human ingenuity with alien experience to address challenges that neither could solve alone. In quiet moments, Eli reflected on how far they had come. He had once carried a frightened blue-skinned girl through the ruins of a war-torn planet, risking his life to keep her safe. Now she had returned, grown and confident, and together they were shaping the galaxy in ways he could never have imagined. And through it all, he realized something profound. Humans, though often underestimated, had a unique power, the power to inspire, to solve, and to endure. That power, combined with trust and partnership, could change worlds. As they prepared for the next council session, Eli felt ready. He knew that challenges would continue to arise, that skepticism and doubt would never fully disappear. But he also knew that humans could rise to meet them, that courage, empathy, and ingenuity could leave a mark that no one could ignore. And with Lyra by his side, he was ready to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The city shimmered beneath the twin moons, and Eli could feel the weight of the work he and Lyra had done bearing down on them. Weeks of discussions, negotiations, and careful planning had led to this moment. The council chamber, normally bustling with debates and murmurs, was unusually quiet. Delegates from every region had gathered, their faces reflecting a mixture of curiosity, respect, and a hint of skepticism. Eli understood that this session was different. It was not just a meeting, it was a demonstration of leadership, vision, and the extraordinary potential of humans when paired with insight and purpose. Lyra stood at the front of the chamber, radiant and composed. Her presence alone commanded attention, and yet she allowed Eli to step beside her. "Eli," she said softly, her voice carrying both warmth and authority, "today we show them what we can achieve together." Eli took a deep breath. He could feel the eyes of hundreds of delegates upon him. Some were alien, with appearances so diverse that it was almost impossible to categorize them. Others were human representatives, curious about what one of their own could contribute in such an important forum. Eli's heart pounded, but he remembered Lyra's lessons: calm observation, empathy, and confidence in the face of uncertainty. He straightened his posture and prepared to speak. Lyra began, outlining the challenges the galaxy faced. Resource allocation, intersystem trade disputes, and the mistrust between neighboring civilizations had caused inefficiencies, unrest, and stagnation. Her voice was steady, her tone firm but encouraging. She spoke not as a ruler commanding obedience, but as a guide encouraging collaboration. Then she turned to Eli. "This human," she said, gesturing toward him, "has taught me something important. Courage, empathy, and ingenuity are forces that cannot be measured by size or power. He has helped me see solutions that might have been overlooked, and together we offer a path forward, one that values every voice, balances needs, and fosters cooperation across the galaxy." Eli stepped forward, feeling the gravity of the moment. He did not speak to dominate the room. He spoke to connect, to inspire understanding. "I know many of you doubt what a human can offer," he said honestly, "and I do not blame you. Humans are often underestimated. But we have learned to observe, adapt, and find solutions where others see only obstacles. Cooperation, understanding, and respect are tools that every species can use, regardless of technology or strength. Today, we have an opportunity to apply these tools and create something that benefits all of us." The chamber remained silent, the delegates absorbing his words. Some shifted in their seats, intrigued by the simplicity and clarity of his message. Eli continued, outlining a detailed plan for collaboration across systems. It involved shared oversight committees for resources, transparent communication channels, and rotational leadership roles to ensure fairness. He proposed a system of conflict resolution that relied on dialogue, mediation, and mutual benefit rather than dominance or intimidation. As Eli spoke, Lyra watched him closely, pride in her eyes. She had brought him here not just to assist, but to demonstrate that humans could contribute uniquely to the galaxy. She had witnessed his courage as a child and a young man, and now she saw it manifest in wisdom, clarity, and the ability to unite others. The room slowly began to respond. Nods, murmurs of approval, and thoughtful expressions replaced skepticism. Delegates leaned forward, asking questions, seeking clarification, and proposing adjustments to Eli's ideas. By the end of the session, an agreement had been reached. It was not perfect, but it was far better than anything the council had previously attempted. Representatives from different regions shook hands, exchanged respectful glances, and expressed genuine optimism for the future. Eli felt a surge of accomplishment, tempered by humility. This was not about personal recognition. It was about demonstrating what humans and aliens could achieve together when guided by trust, intelligence, and empathy. After the council session, Lyra and Eli walked through the palace gardens, the night air cool and fragrant. Eli felt a sense of calm he had not experienced in years. "Lyra," he said quietly, "I never imagined that humans could make such a difference. I thought our role in the galaxy was small, almost invisible. But now I see that courage, empathy, and perspective can change everything." Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of the twin moons. "Eli, you have shown that humans are remarkable, not through power or force, but through understanding, observation, and creativity. That is why I returned, to remind both you and the galaxy that even the smallest voice can have a profound impact when guided by courage and integrity." Eli felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of purpose and pride that went beyond personal achievement. The bond he shared with Lyra had matured from protection and trust into partnership and shared vision. They had navigated challenges together, overcome doubt, and now their combined efforts were influencing entire systems. The thought was exhilarating, almost overwhelming. In the following weeks, Eli and Lyra continued to implement their plans. Delegates learned to communicate more openly, share resources more fairly, and consider perspectives they had previously ignored. Eli's insights, combined with Lyra's authority and understanding of her people, created solutions that were efficient, just, and sustainable. He observed how the galaxy began to shift, slowly but surely, toward cooperation and mutual respect. One day, as they reviewed progress reports in Lyra's private chamber, she turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Eli, I want you to understand something," she said. "You have done more than assist me. You have reminded me of the value of humans, of their courage, their ingenuity, and their empathy. You have reminded me that even in a galaxy filled with advanced technology and powerful fleets, there is a unique power in perspective and heart. That is what makes humans extraordinary." Eli shook his head, smiling modestly. "I only applied what I know. I never thought humans would be seen as capable of this, but I am proud that we have shown them a different way." Lyra placed her hand on his arm. "Pride is not arrogance, Eli. It is acknowledgement of achievement, and you have achieved something remarkable. Together, we have demonstrated that the galaxy underestimates humans at its own risk." Their partnership became widely recognized. Delegates from other systems requested meetings, curious to learn how humans and Lyra's leadership could influence outcomes. Eli found himself offering solutions to challenges that had persisted for decades, using human ingenuity to create approaches that were fair, practical, and adaptable. He realized that human problem-solving was not about brute force or authority. It was about understanding, compromise, and creativity, qualities that the galaxy had often overlooked. As they prepared for a gala honoring the agreements they had implemented, Eli reflected on his journey. He had gone from a soldier protecting a frightened blue-skinned child to a trusted advisor shaping decisions that affected multiple worlds. Lyra, who had once been a child clinging to his protection, now stood beside him as a confident leader who valued his input, perspective, and partnership. Their bond was a testament to trust, respect, and shared purpose. The gala was held in a grand hall, with delegates, officials, and citizens gathering to celebrate the new era of cooperation. Eli was formally recognized for his contributions, not with titles or honors that mattered little, but with acknowledgement of the unique perspective he had brought to the council. Delegates shook his hand, thanked him for his insight, and expressed admiration for the clarity and creativity he had demonstrated. Lyra watched him from the stage, her expression one of pride and warmth. When it was time to address the crowd, she spoke of partnership, vision, and the power of humans to inspire and contribute. She highlighted Eli's role, not as a token or novelty, but as an equal whose perspective had helped achieve lasting solutions. Her words resonated across the hall, emphasizing that courage, empathy, and intelligence could shape the galaxy in ways power alone never could. After the gala, Eli and Lyra returned to the palace gardens. The night was calm, stars twinkling above and the twin moons reflecting on the crystal-clear ponds. Eli felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "Lyra," he said, "I never imagined life could lead to something like this. From protecting you as a child to standing beside you as an equal, it is more than I could have hoped for." Lyra smiled, placing her hand gently on his. "Eli, you have always been remarkable. Your courage, your empathy, your insight, they have shaped not only me but the galaxy itself. And together, we have proven something important. Humans are not to be underestimated. Their hearts, minds, and creativity are forces that can change worlds." Eli felt a quiet pride. Humans were often overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. Yet here he was, recognized for qualities that no weapon, fleet, or technology could measure. Courage, empathy, and ingenuity. These were the true powers that humans carried, and through his partnership with Lyra, he had shown the galaxy just how extraordinary they could be. As they walked through the gardens, Lyra paused and looked at him. "Eli, do you remember when I first asked you to kneel?" Eli nodded. "Yes, I was surprised, confused, but I understood it was about respect and acknowledgement." Lyra's eyes softened. "Exactly. And now look at what we have achieved together." That moment, small as it seemed, was a turning point. It reminded both of us of what we value, what we respect, and what we can accomplish when trust guides our actions. You have reminded me of human potential, and together we have made a difference. Eli smiled, feeling the journey come full circle. From the ruins of Zyphera to the heights of leadership and influence, he had walked a path shaped by courage, empathy, and human ingenuity. And alongside Lyra, he had demonstrated that humans, often underestimated, could leave a mark on the galaxy that no one could ignore. The night stretched on, peaceful and still. Eli and Lyra looked at the stars, reflecting on their journey, the challenges they had faced, and the progress they had made. The galaxy was vast and complex, but they had proven that cooperation, understanding, and the unique qualities humans brought could create lasting change. Eli realized in that quiet moment that their story was far from over. There would be new challenges, new opportunities, and new worlds to influence. But with Lyra by his side, he felt ready for anything. They had faced war, uncertainty, and doubt, and they had emerged stronger, wiser, and united. And in the end, Eli understood something profound. Humans, though often overlooked, carried a strength beyond measure. Courage, empathy, creativity, and integrity were forces that could shape galaxies, influence civilizations, and create lasting change. And as he stood beside Lyra, he knew that together, they would continue to show the galaxy the true power of humanity. It was the culmination of a journey that had begun with protection, trust, and care. And it would continue, with humans and their allies shaping the future through insight, partnership, and heart.